not going to be a particularly chilly night away from the far northeast where we keep the clear skies, but it is going to be a soggy start to Wednesday. Some heavy rain through parts of Wales, the Midlands, northern England as well. That will come and go through the day. The bands of rain push their way northeastwards. It does turn drier and brighter in places, particularly Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England by the afternoon, but areas of rain will persist elsewhere, particularly across parts of Wales. It's going to feel a bit more humid, highs of 20 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M6 northbound at junction 38 in Cumbria, an accident has caused all lanes to close, resulting in delays. On the A34 in Oxfordshire, southbound traffic faces significant congestion with approximately 30-minute delays expected until around 9:58 this morning. Plan your journey accordingly. On the M5 southbound at junction 12 in Gloucestershire, a broken down vehicle is causing lane closures. And on the trains, northern buses are replacing trains between Corkicle and Whitehaven. South Western Railway reports disruptions between Bournemouth and Weymouth and Basingstoke and Woking. Check schedules before you travel. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
What on earth is going on at our universities? So Professor Stephen Greer had worked for the University of Bristol for 36 years when his career was halted after a false accusation of Islamophobia. The issue arose when Greer taught about the Charlie Hebdo attacks during a human rights module, and a student who didn't actually attend the course complained. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by Stephen Greer himself to explain what happened. Stephen, thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. Can you just explain the circumstances that led up to you being accused of Islamophobia, please?
Well, out of the blue, or almost out of the blue, I received a complaint about a module I'd been teaching on a unit, a human rights unit, entitled Islam, China and the Far East, for nearly 15 years without incident. Which included the increasing critical literature about human rights issues in Islam, China, and the Far East. And my principally, as I said, the principal complaint, it did include a complaint about Charlie Hebdo, but the principal complaint was about the fact that I had referred students to the authoritative academic literature. And the student who complained was the president of BRISOC, the University of Bristol Islamic Society, who was a medical student who had not attended any of the course himself, and he claimed to be acting on behalf of anonymous students. And there were all kinds of other procedural irregularities in the complaint, but the university decided to entertain it anyway. Okay. And I was exonerated after a 5-month inquiry. Then the university said, well, they were publicly announced. They took the module off the syllabus.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Tuesday the 16th of September, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the deportations have been cancelled. The first flight carrying illegal migrants back to France under the so-called one-in, one-out deal was scrapped last night due to protests and threats of legal action.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Sir Keir Starmer's judgment is still being called into question as he admits to knowing about communications between Lord Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. There'll be an emergency debate called by the Tories later today.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left.
Well, that was Danny Kruger MP, who has switched his allegiance from the Conservative Party to Reform UK. He'll be joining us live in the studio shortly. But will any other Tories jump ship?
The answer is yes. We have breaking news of a 13th former Tory MP jumping ship to Reform UK. Find out who it is next.
Trump incoming, rolling out the red carpet. We are for the US president's second state visit today. He's expected, we're told, by his officials to go easy on the embattled Sir Keir Starmer.
And another of the Prime Minister's aides has quit. Number 10's Director of Strategy, Paul Ovenden, has resigned over leaked X-rated messages about the Labour MP Diane Abbott back in 2017. Well, of course, big news today as President Trump lands, and we will be broadcasting live from the state visit tomorrow in Windsor.
Yeah, Windsor Castle. It's the most wonderful castle. It's like a fairy tale castle. He's going to love being there. Conveniently, though, Miriam, the government have timed the visit for when Parliament is in recess, so no open carriage ride up the Mall, which would have been a huge security target because Buckingham Palace is a building site. But I hear that there might be a little carriage ride in Windsor.
I'm sure he'll like that. But also, there's a lot of MPs on the left who don't want a state visit, and it'd be quite embarrassing if he was to attempt to address Parliament and there was some sort of protest from the MPs themselves. So it's probably sensible. But I'm very much looking forward to it.
But a lot of Labour MPs also are fed up to the back teeth with the Prime Minister, won't like watching the Prime Minister glad handling and almost grovelling to the President.
Well, but could it save Starmer? He's had a really difficult week. Could it take the focus off the difficult questions about his advisers, about Peter Mandelson, and refocused on foreign affairs, which he seems to enjoy? That's perhaps the only bit of the job that he does enjoy at the moment.
Not for long. We'd love to hear what you think. Send your views and post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top story. Sir Keir Starmer is facing the prospect of further questions about his leadership after sacking Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington over his links to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump will touch down today in the UK for his second state visit. He'll stay in Windsor Castle, where he'll be hosted by the King and be treated to a state banquet. Google is set to invest £5 billion in the UK in the next 2 years to support growing demands for AI services. The announcement is expected to contribute to the creation of thousands of jobs, the US tech giant said. Chancellor Rachel Reeves described it as a vote of confidence in the UK economy. That's as wage growth has fallen back to its lowest level for more than 3 years as firms continue to clamp down on hiring, according to the official figures. The ONS said regular wage growth, excluding bonuses, dropped to 4.8% in the 3 months to July, down from 5% in the previous 3 months and the lowest since May of 2022. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good morning. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So our political editor, Chris Hope's here in the studio with us because only one day after Kemi Badenoch lost one of, I would argue, her most important Tory MPs, Danny Kruger, thoughtful, cerebral, really deeply involved in policy, he's defected. And there's another one.
Yes, and we're hearing from him shortly on your show, aren't we, Danny Kruger? But there's more news. I can reveal that Maria Caulfield, who's a former government health minister, now a full-time nurse in the NHS after losing her seat last July, has joined Nigel Farage's party. So she's the 13th former Conservative MP to jump ship to Reform UK. She was the Tory MP for Lewis, 2015 to 2024. And she told me last night when I spoke to her, and I can only speak to her, frankly, frankly, in the evenings after her shift, because she's working hard as a nurse, which is marvellous. She says, if you are Conservative right-minded, then the future, she says, is reform. This country is going to change a lot. The same people who thought that Brexit wouldn't happen think that reform won't happen. They're in for a shock, she told me last night.
And was she wooed by Nigel? He clearly wooed...
She hasn't talked to Nigel. She's talked to Lee Anderson so far, who she knew from being a fellow Tory MP when Lee Anderson was a Tory MP. Her husband has jumped ship to Reform as well a few months ago, and she's gone in the last month. It just is interesting, I think. Again, this hasn't really... not an organised thing by Reform UK. It's almost happening organically. You've got people just deciding for themselves, I'm joining Reform UK, and that's exactly what Nigel Farage wants. He wants people to think, well, the Tories can't beat Keir Starmer. Who can beat Keir Starmer? It's Farage's party.
But he also wants to be careful about which Conservatives do join Reform, because amongst the Reform base, there's understandably a lot of anger with the Conservative Party, and certainly, in my former constituency, lots of people voted for the Conservatives in 2019 for the very first time because of Brexit, because they felt that the Labour Party had let them down, and they were deeply disappointed and betrayed by immigration and various other things. And so I think Farage would probably say he doesn't want the kind of Tories that supported the immigration policy of the last government.
I've got a list here of the Tories, it may be on screen, but I've got a list here of the Tories who have joined Reform UK since the election. Nadine Dorries, Sir Jake Berry, Adam Holloway, Anne-Marie Morris, Sir David Jones, so members of the former Tory cabinet some years ago, Henry Smith, Andrea Jenkin, as I said, we know, of course, now the Mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, and Ross Thompson, Marco Longhi. So, you know these people, don't you? Are they all far-right people? Are they moderate Tories? Who are these people?
They're all people who would have, under the last Parliament, been called on the right of the Conservative Party, but in my view, they were just Conservatives, and unfortunately, the Conservative Party became very split between Liberals and Conservatives, which was, explains its downfall. But we've so far not seen any what I would call liberal members of the Conservative Party try to join Reform for obvious reasons.
Or in former Labour MPs.
Well, that's where I think Reform have a problem, because what they need to be careful of is that they're not seen as a dumping ground for former MPs, disillusioned MPs, Tory MPs who think they're going to lose their seat. That's not Christian Kruger, because if he was to lose his seat, it would be to the Lib Dems, not Reform. They haven't had a major Labour defector yet, the Tories. Reform.
Yes, people like Maria Caulfield, she's not a firebrand. She's a straightforward someone doing public service. She's doing public service in the NHS now, was as an MP. I think that's, to her complete credit, frankly. She said to me, she's sad for the Tory party. I could see that I have changed, but the party has become less and less what I believe in. We let people down over Brexit, she said, on laws, money and borders. We took back control, but we did not do anything about it. Reform has changed the system. So she draws a line between the Brexit vote and Reform, and that was because the Tories failed to deliver on the promise of Brexit.
I was actually at the Reform conference, was it 2 weeks ago now, with the Centre for Social Justice. We were doing a panel on lost boys, which is obviously one of the things we've been working on. And it was really interesting. I ran into lots of people who came up to me and said, I'm still a member of the Conservative Party, but I'm wondering about switching. And I think possibly people haven't known where Reform stand on certain issues. They're a new party. There have been mixed messages, let's be honest. But potentially the defection of Danny Kruger, who it's very well known what he believes, it's very well documented, that could mark a tipping point.
He's a young man compared to some of the older colleagues, or former colleagues, who are joining Reform, and his future's ahead of him, not behind him. That's what makes him so interesting.
Now, Chris, there's been significant news economically, because we've got inflation figures which are going to have some benefit.
Well, this is huge, So
it's going to affect the pension next year.
This will be boasted about by Labour for the next 6 months, but how they're going to pay for it is a different matter. But great news for viewers who are pensioners. The new state pension will rise by £500 next April. Pat McFadden, the Welfare Secretary, has announced a triple lock, which was pledged in the Labour manifesto, as it was in the Tory manifesto, guarantees the state pension goes up by inflation, average earnings growth, or 2.5%. Well, they're saying today that because of the inflation set now in September, it will go up by 4.7%, the pension next April. That is a big boost for people.
But inflation isn't 4.7% at the moment.
They're saying that they are saying here that the relevant average earnings figure, forgive me, so the triple lock is three things.
Yes.
forgive me, you're absolutely correct. They're not the inflation, but the average earnings figure.
Yeah.
So it's whichever is the greater it goes up by.
Right.
In this case, average earnings goes by 4.7%, probably fueled by public sector pay increase.
Yeah, which will be...
So it all falls...
Fueled by taxes, because let's remember the state pension, there's not a pot of money that people have paid into, sadly. That's not what national insurance is. It's spent immediately by the government of the day. So a rise in pension means a rise in tax contribution or debt for working age people, and in fact, people who haven't started working yet.
It'll be very welcome to pensions, but I suspect the government will get very little credit for it because they'll probably have to
they're trying to claim it.
money from somewhere else to pay for it.
They're trying to claim it. Pat McFadden says this government, Labour government, is committed to maintaining the triple lock for the whole Parliament, and we haven't had that commitment from Kemi Badenoch, by the way. Worth noting that, and we'll try and get that from her, or ask her about it at the conference in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
We might be speaking to Kemi Badenoch today, so
will you ask her again?
Yes, I know, 2 days running.
Every day, Andrew Pearce. And it's estimated...
She just loves talking.
She loves you.
I think she's got a soft spot.
Pat McFadden...
Bearing in mind, Pat McFadden has confirmed the triple lock we're aiming for this Parliament.
Will she? Ask that question, please.
And it's 4.7% average earnings?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And it will go up by nearly £2,000 by the end of this Parliament, Labour say today. As a commitment from Labour to our pensioners in this country. It's something that we said we'd do at the election and we'll keep to. So sticking to their promises, they're saying here. And do ask about Mireille Caulfield for me as well.
Yeah, of course you will. About time they stuck to one promise, Labour.
Yeah, that's why they're trumpeting. And you'll see this posted about the party conference next week.
And we'll ask her about Mireille Caulfield too. And we'll ask her again about Danny Kruger, because she seemed to want to talk yesterday more about Lord Manderson.
Of course, why not? Wonder why not?
About the impact of Labour's taxes on business, because I think that's what they're trying to talk about today.
Very good, Chris. Well done on Mireille Caulfield. Very good scoop.
Well, still ahead, the US President Donald Trump will land in Britain later for his second state visit. Are you at home happy to roll out the red carpet for him? Let us know on gbnews.com/your say.
And we're not particularly getting any pleasure out of this, but we did say, told you so, the first flight carrying illegal migrants back to France under the so-called one-in, one-out deal took off last night. Guess what? No migrants on board. We'll tell you why.
But if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you're wondering where you can go to avoid the UK's wind and rain, well, just about anywhere further south will do it, with a large area of high pressure bringing widespread dry and sunny weather, and in fact very warm weather to the Canaries, into Spain as well as Portugal. Central Spain at the moment seeing temperatures up to 37, 38 Celsius, much higher than average for the time of year. Not quite as hot across Central Europe, but mostly dry with plenty of sunshine, and that theme continues through the rest of the week and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
What do you think is the origin of this palace not being loved by the royal family as a place to live?
Well, you see, it's a little bit like an Edwardian hotel in Brighton. It's all long corridors and rooms off them. It's not very friendly as a place, you know. So the Queen and Prince Philip occupied the rooms along the Constitution Hill side. She had half of them and he had the other half. And if ever they came out into a corridor, you know, so it's just not very friendly. And of course, the other thing is that the gardens are now terribly overlooked by the Hilton and other big buildings, whereas the King living at Clarence House, he has a very nice garden there and it's not overlooked at all. I mean, I have seen Prince Philip's rooms because I'd worked with his office a lot and I did a book about his mother, so I was there quite often. I haven't seen the Queen's rooms, but I'd love to see them.
Yes. And at the beginning of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, the palace was not open to the public at all, was it?
No, it wasn't. And actually, she didn't want to go and live there either. She was living in Clarence House, but Churchill said that it's sovereign's residence and she had to move in. He forced her to move in. That was quite tricky because the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret were still living there at the beginning. And then they moved into Clarence House a little while later, somewhat before the coronation. The only reason that the palace was open as a public tourist attraction was to make money to pay for the fire damage of 1992 at Windsor Castle. And that was so successful that the opening has gone on ever since, and it raises money for the Royal Collection Trust in order to look after all the treasures which are held by the sovereign for the nation.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's just gone 10:15. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News. And Andrew, I hate to say I told you so, but neither of us thought this one-in, one-out deal was going to do an awful lot.
Well, it was announced with a great all sort of bells and whistles, wasn't it, by the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, back in July, and she said the flights would take off within weeks, one in, one out. Well, we know from our very fine Mark White that actually since that policy was announced, 5,600 have arrived. Yesterday, migrants were due to be on an Air Flight France. We now know why ministers wouldn't tell us how many were going to be on the flight. One solitary migrant, that was it. Yeah. And guess what? When the flight came and took off, no migrant at all. And why is that, Miriam?
Oh, well, because his lawyers, I think, had made some appeal under the ECHR, under the Human Rights Act. And this is exactly the problem that, unfortunately, the Rwanda deal would have faced, which was that even if the Conservatives had not called an election when they did, and they'd started to put people on flights, those individuals would have been able to make claims under things like right to a family life, rights to not be potentially tortured in the home country. And actually, Danny Kruger and myself and a number of others tried to get the previous government to introduce into that bill an exclusion so that you can't use these individual appeals. But the last Conservative government was not interested in that.
But why?
Because I think because there still is this ideological commitment to international law, and the idea of backtracking on the ECHR or backtracking on international agreements was just too much for some people in the Conservative Party, and I worry that remains the case.
And the entire cabinet was of that view, was it?
Well, I don't know, but I think the politics, the numbers were the numbers, and I think Rishi Sunak and the Chief Whip probably knew that if they did accept the amendments we were proposing that would disapply the ECHR for the purposes of the Rwanda deal, that too many Conservative backbenchers would rebel. They're obviously not going to get Labour votes on this, and then the bill wouldn't pass. So I think it was a pragmatic calculation, even if it was the wrong decision.
And so now we've got another government
doing the same thing,
caught in exactly the same bind. Yeah. We've got a new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says she'll think the unthinkable and get on about the ECHR. I bet she doesn't.
Exactly. But this is absurd. There is an explanation. You can kind of understand why sending 100 people back to Rwanda might cause legal problems, but they're going to France.
Yeah.
How can you claim you're going to be endangered by going to France on an Air France plane?
Yeah, and a country in the part of the European Union, for God's sake. Exactly. The saintly European Union. Well, let's talk further with the immigration lawyer, Ivan Sampson. Ivan, morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew.
We want to know, was that one of your clients on that plane? Were you cashing in ruthlessly, exploiting the British taxpayer again by representing a migrant who shouldn't be here in the first place?
You've got to be careful what you say about a lawyer on national TV, Andrew.
I was asking a question.
I wasn't. But let me answer your colleagues' questions about how is it that you can stop somebody going across to France on a plane, and why would their life be in danger? It's all about fairness. Every process has to be fair, from selecting the individual, how you define it inadmissible under the one in, one out policy, but also about the mechanisms in place in France. And I'm really surprised the government didn't put those mechanisms in place, because that's exactly the reason that the Rwanda plan was struck down. And so if I was the government, I would have had those mechanisms in place, had policies and procedures so that they can be presented to the court if people did make a judicial review. So there's one fundamental problem, is that while we're members of the Refugee Convention, and that's the principle of non-refoulement, that they may then go on to face persecution, be removed to their own country. And while we're members of the European Convention on Human Rights, nobody is going to be sent to France on this one in, one out policy.
They can't face persecution in France.
No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. You've got to show that you've got a mechanism for these individuals that their asylum claims will be considered in France. We haven't got that. There is no mechanism. And, if France simply just accepts them and then removes them themselves without having a fair asylum claim, then that will be unlawful. Remember, what the Supreme Court said in Rwanda was is that you cannot subcontract your obligations under the treaty, under the 51 treaty. But if you do, you must have a mechanism in place so wherever they're going to, they're having a fair asylum claim. The government haven't done that. I'm quite astonished. They haven't learned anything from the failures of the Conservative government in the Rwanda plan.
Now, Ivor, you mentioned that it's all about fairness, but one group of people that this is completely unfair to is the taxpayer. Right. I understand that we are paying for migrants to be flown out of England to France, if that ever happens, but we're also paying for the French government to fly in the asylum seekers they want to send to us in return for the apparent people that have been deported. And I understand the Times is reporting that the first arrivals are due on Saturday, even though we've failed to deport anybody yet. It's completely unfair.
Indeed. And also, remember that people can claim asylum here from France, so just bear with me a second, sorry.
Oh dear, that's a big technical problem. He's gone.
Yeah.
But
that was always what I was saying yesterday.
Andrew.
If we don't manage to deport one in, one out, they asked, but France is going to send people here, and we will, of course, accept them.
Yep.
And how many are we going to accept? We don't know, because the government won't tell us.
And this policy
was going to be 50?
No, we don't know. They're keeping their numbers very tight, close to their chest.
In addition to the 5,500 who came here across the channel illegally.
And this policy was never going to reduce asylum claims, because the whole point was we were going to send back small boat arrivals and accept legal asylum claimants from France. It was never going to reduce asylum claimants, but it was supposed to deter the boats from crossing in the first place. And I think today is just the end of the road for this policy.
Did this government, which has been in power for nearly 14 months, not learn a thing from the debacle over the Rwanda flight?
I think they thought that because they were Labour, the immigration lawyers would give them a good time, an easy time, and that they'd be able to solve the problem.
Loads of money. That's what the immigration lawyers are doing. I'm sure they're very well, highly principled men and women, but they're doing very well out of this. And it's legal aid they're on too.
That's
so
right.
we're paying through our taxes as well, and the flights and the legal aid.
And how this can be, if you're an immigration lawyer, how can you look yourself in the eye and saying you're operating in the national interest here? This is France. We're not sending them back to an unknown country.
Maybe they just don't want to live in Mr. President Macron's terrible France.
There's lots of nice parts of
Danny
France.
Kruger, MP, will join us in the studio to explain exclusively why he defected to reform from the Tories.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly compared with how we've started the week, it's a drier day for most of us today. Still a lot of cloud and still some showers, especially towards western coasts. and more especially parts of northern and northwest England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland. That's where we'll see some very frequent and occasionally persistent showers moving through. Areas of cloud for many, but the brightest weather will be towards the southeast, mostly dry here, as well as parts of central Scotland, again avoiding a lot of the showers here. It's going to feel a little warmer because of the lighter winds compared with Monday, and also because of fewer showers and a bit more sunshine, but it turns increasingly cloudy, increasingly breezy as well from the southwest as the afternoon comes to an end. Meanwhile, for much of Scotland, we keep the showers going into Tuesday evening. The most frequent of these will be across the north of Scotland, and the showers further south through the central belt and southern Scotland tending to ease. Northern Ireland showers also easing for a time. Northwest England seeing one or two, but across parts of Wales and the southwest, the showers merging to give longer spells of rain as the evening sets in because of the next frontal system that's approaching. It also turns breezier overnight. We do keep some clear spells and some dry weather into the east and especially the northeast of Scotland, but really for much of the UK, by dawn on Wednesday, it's a very wet and very breezy picture. That means, of course, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night away from the far northeast where we keep the clear skies, but it is going to be a soggy start to Wednesday. Some heavy rain through parts of Wales, the Midlands, northern England as well. That will come and go through the day. The bands of rain push their way northeastwards. It does turn drier and brighter in places, particularly Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England by the afternoon, but areas of rain will persist elsewhere, particularly across parts of Wales. It's going to feel a bit more humid, highs of 20 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M6 northbound at junction 38 in Cumbria is closed after a collision, causing 15-minute delays. In Hampshire, the A31 eastbound has one lane closed due to an abandoned vehicle between its junction with the A338 north and the M27. Drivers may face disruptions on Greater London's M4 eastbound between junction 3 and junction 2 due to congestion, with 10-minute delays. And on the trains, Northern buses replace trains between Corkicle and Whitehaven, while South Western Railway reports disruptions between Bournemouth and Weymouth, and between Basingstoke and Woking. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 16th of September. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So, some breaking news. Joy for millions of pensioners. The state pension will jump by £560 next year. We'll tell you more.
And deportations cancelled. The first flight carrying illegal migrants back to France under the so-called one-in, one-out deal was scrapped last night due to protests and threats of legal action.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Try as he might, Sir Keir Starmer's judgment is being called into question again as he admits to knowing about communications between Lord Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. There'll be an emergency debate in Parliament later.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left.
Yes, that was the MP Danny Kruger who switched his allegiance from the Conservatives to Reform UK. He'll be joining us live in the studio shortly.
And more embarrassment for the Prime Minister. The number 10 Director of Strategy, Paul Overton, has resigned over leaked, X-rated messages about the Labour MP Diane Abbott. This follows, of course, the resignation of the Deputy Prime Minister and the sacking of Lord Mandelson.
And find out why a top lawyer thinks the definition of Islamophobia being drawn up by Labour ministers will hinder police.
Well, a government source says that the concerns of Tom Cross KC are nonsense from an activist lawyer. But that lawyer is worried that it could prevent the police and MI5 from investigating Muslims.
And we're rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump as his second state visit gets underway later today. We're being told he's going to go easy on the embattled Prime Minister.
Well, coming up after the news, we do have this exclusive interview with Danny Kruger to find out why he has become the first sitting Conservative MP to defect to Reform.
It's a big moment in the hit for the Tory party, huge moment for Reform. Will others follow suit? Nigel Farage says so. But we're going to find out what was the final reason, what was the trigger that pushed him to do this, because it's a big step.
And do let us know what you think. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com/your say.
But first, your 60-second update, news update with... don't know who it's with.
Tatiana, I think.
Tatiana.
Good morning. The top stories. Sir Keir Starmer is facing the prospect of further questions about his leadership after sacking Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington over his links to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Prime Minister is under pressure after admitting he was aware of emails between Lord Mandelson and the convicted paedophile. He's blamed his team for not properly briefing him on the contents of the emails and insists he will not quit over the scandal.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him.
Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News Breakfast.
He will have been close enough and understanding enough of the sensitivities here. He would have known that he was going into a Prime Minister's questions where he was going to get asked all about this. Prime Ministers prep very thoroughly for PMQs. It's one of the big things they do during their week. And the idea that he would not have been asking questions about what was in those emails, what do I need to be worried about, I think beggars credulity. And so that's why we're having this debate. We want this information out there so it can be properly examined and we can get the answers.
US President Donald Trump will touch down in the UK today for his second state visit. He'll stay in Windsor Castle, where he'll be hosted by the King and be treated to a state banquet. There'll be no public-facing engagements during the visit, with thousands expected to protest against the president during his two-day visit. Security will be operating at a very high threat level. Thames Valley Police says it's content with its operation, but that arrangements were reviewed daily in light of planned protests and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was killed in Utah last week. Sir Keir Starmer said the courage shown by the Hillsborough campaigners had been humbling as he welcomed some of them to Downing Street this morning. Campaigners have hailed a momentous day as a bill to force public officials to tell the truth is finally introduced into Parliament. The Public Office Bill, known more commonly as the Hillsborough Law, will be tabled today after nearly a decade-long fight to get it on the statute books. Crucially, the legislation contains a new professional and legal duty of candour, meaning public officials must act with honesty and integrity at all times or face criminal sanctions. Concerns this element would be watered down delayed the bill being introduced by the 36th anniversary of the tragedy in April, a deadline the Prime Minister set at the Labour conference in Liverpool last year. In other news today, Google is set to invest £5 billion in the UK in the next 2 years to support growing demands for AI services. The announcement is expected to contribute to the creation of thousands of jobs, the US tech giant said. Chancellor Rachel Reeves described it as a vote of confidence in the UK economy. The news comes hours before Donald Trump lands in the UK for his state visit, at which he and Sir Keir Starmer are widely expected to sign a new UK-US tech deal. That's as wage growth has fallen back to its lowest level for more than 3 years as firms continue to clamp down on hiring, according to official figures. The ONS said regular wage growth, excluding bonuses, dropped to 4.8% in the 3 months to July, down from 5% in the previous 3 months and the lowest since May of 2022. Wages are still outstripping inflation, but at a slower pace as real earnings growth eased back to 1.2%, which is the lowest point since September 2 years ago. The ONS said the rate of unemployment remained unchanged at 4.7% in the 3 months to July. A commission established by the United Nations says Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The report claims it is clear that there is an intent to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza and says Israel's actions meet the criteria set down for defining a genocide. It's the first time that such an explosive allegation has been made publicly by a UN body. Israel has dismissed the report, denouncing it as distorted and false. It comes amid reports that Israel has launched a ground offensive to seize Gaza City. The commission, which has been studying the conduct of Israel since the Hamas attacks of 7th October 2023, has concluded Israel has committed 4 of the 5 acts laid out in the Genocide Convention. And the Duchess of Kent's funeral service will be held at Westminster Cathedral, attended by the King and Queen and other members of the royal family. The Requiem Mass, a Catholic funeral, is the first to be held for a member of the monarchy in modern British history and will feature a Scottish bagpipe, lament performed during Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in 2022. Catherine, the wife of the late Queen's cousin, the Duke of Kent, died peacefully at her home surrounded by her family. She was 92. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Hello and welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Well, Danny Kruger has become the second sitting MP in the first this Parliament to defect to Reform UK.
An MP since 2019, he sat under Kemi Badenoch's team as the Shadow Work and Pensions Minister. We're going to hear from him in a moment, but first, a former Tory MP, Sir Robert Buckland, he lost his seat at the last election, didn't take too well to the defection on GB News last night.
I'm one of Danny's constituents. Part of his seat was my old seat of South Swindon. And I think a lot of us feel, well, look, we voted Conservative. We voted for a Conservative MP, and now he's gone off to another party. He should have the courage of his convictions and face the electors in a by-election. And you know, there are precedents for this. You remember the UKIP candidates like Douglas Carswell. They had the courage to stand for election, and they won. Now, you know, put up or shut up, frankly, and call that by-election, and let's see what happens. I'm not sure it will be a slam dunk for Reform, because at the last election they came a very distant 3rd or 4th in that seat. Perhaps that's the real reason why they don't want to fight in East Wiltshire this time.
Well, Danny Kruger, now the Reform MP for East Wiltshire, joins us now in the studio. Good morning, Danny. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll come on to your reasons for moving to Reform in a minute, but how do you respond to what Robert Buckland was saying there, that really you should call a by-election?
Well, Robert's wrong about what would happen if there were a by-election. Reform are well ahead in the polls currently in East Wiltshire, so I wouldn't advise Conservatives to suggest that a by-election would help them. No, I mean, the fact is that Nigel Farage has made it clear he doesn't expect or want by-elections. There have been a series of defections to his party in the Scottish and Welsh assemblies, which have not caused by-elections. And here in the UK Parliament, he's expecting more as well. And what he doesn't want to inflict on the public is a whole series of by-elections every time that happens. I think there is an important difference between a defection from the governing party to the opposition, between that and a move from one opposition party to the next. And what I would say is, I was elected to do the job that I am going to continue to do at the last election. I will carry on doing my job in exactly the same way, opposing the Labour government, standing up for Conservative principles, representing my constituents in exactly the same way that I always have. So they've got the same MP that they elected, and I'm going to do the same job as I always have.
Now, Danny, you've been a member of the Conservative Party a long time, and not just any member. You've had senior roles within the party before you were elected, writing speeches, working with David Cameron, Ian Duncan Smith. In the last Parliament, you were a parliamentary private secretary. You did a lot of work with the government. It must have been a big wrench to leave the Conservative Party, but why now?
Well, yes, I mean, on a personal level, for what it's worth, it is very painful. It's not an enjoyable experience. I don't feel any sort of particular joy or sort of adulation, or pleasure at this change. And on a personal level, I recognise I've caused a lot of dismay to a lot of people I really like and respect in the Conservative Party. So there is nothing personal about this. But I have come to the conclusion that in our rather brutal first-past-the-post parliamentary system, there's only one challenger to the left, and that's got to be either Reform or the Conservatives. There simply isn't space for both of them, and the reason why we are such a denuded rump in Parliament now, we, the Conservative Party, the whole right, in fact, is because we were standing against each other at the last election. And if that happens again, I don't think this country has much hope. But we are in such an advanced state of crisis. I'm afraid much of it the consequence of Conservative Party policy in the last 14 years, but accelerated by this terrible Labour government that we have. We simply can't have another 4 years of it while the Conservatives try and sort themselves out and get back into power. We have to get behind the leader and the party that I think has the best chance of bringing real change to this country. And it's not just a rejection of the Conservative Party that I'm making here, and I do reject them with great sadness, and nothing personal against Kemi. Personally, I think she's done an admirable job, very difficult circumstances.
Do you really?
Well, listen, I don't agree with a lot.
You did say yesterday that she'd vanished from view.
Well, yes, I have significant disagreements with her strategy over the last year, but on a personal level, I think she's shown real courage and resilience, doing the hardest job in politics. So I'm not going to attack her personally. I think any leader of the opposition would have had a tough time over the last year, but I do disagree with the strategy. I think what she and we should have done is a much more bold assertion of Conservative principles and policies over the last year. But here we are. I'm not just rejecting the Conservatives, painful as that is. I'm actually enthusiastically backing Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, who I think have shown over the last year, and I hope with my appointment this is demonstrated too, they have become a real serious party of opposition with an intention to be the party of government. And what they've asked me to do is to lead their preparation for government, because, as Nigel said yesterday, being so ahead in the polls, there's now a real prospect of winning. Nothing is guaranteed. And it would be irresponsible not to take the position they're in seriously and do what Labour plainly failed to do in the last Parliament, which was to prepare properly for government. So if we get into power in a couple of years' time, there will be a plan. There will be a fully worked out programme of legislation and civil service reform, vitally as well, in order to enact the policies that we're going to put to the public at the election.
I'm just curious about your personal journey, Danny, because you were a speechwriter for David Cameron. I think you would find your new colleagues in Reform would say David Cameron wasn't much of a Conservative. You then carried on in the Tory party under Theresa May. I think they'd certainly say that about her, who tried to surrender Brexit. You worked for Boris Johnson, who was political director. Boris Johnson was responsible for one of the biggest surges in migration to this country ever. 1.2 million. You stay true and loyal to the Tory party. Now you've jumped ship. Is it all about opportunism because you think it's the only way you're going to get anywhere is under Reform and possibly a ministerial job because the Tories have done more?
Good challenge, Andrew. Thank you very much. Well, just to be clear, I've only been an MP since 2019.
Sure.
I worked for David Cameron back in the days of opposition, and I supported him, and I actually did stand by I do really genuinely believe there were some good things that he tried to do. The big society, most of all, schools reform, welfare reform. So I'm not going to, dismiss him for that. I do think the period...
Didn't achieve it, though, did he?
Well, no, but absolutely right. Yes, didn't go far enough at all. But the principles were there, and I think that was a good Conservative effort to reform the way the state works. I do think our period in opposition, as I said yesterday, our period in government was generally one of failure. I came in as a MP in 2019, having worked briefly for Boris Johnson in government as Prime Minister before the 2019 election. Again, I'm very, very proud of what he achieved in that year, getting Brexit done. And that was a tremendous achievement. But since then, absolutely right. And in the last Parliament, as an MP, I opposed what was happening on immigration, particularly on illegal immigration. And Miriam and I worked together on that, and we rebelled against the Rwanda policy because it didn't go far enough to disentangle us from the ECHR. So, yes, I have stood by the Conservative Party all these years through thick and thin. I have many good friendships there, and I think some good things were done, and I'm glad they were in power rather than Labour over the last 14 years. But I do think overall, those reform voters who say nothing much changed, it's all one party, I think have a very legitimate point to make. What we need is genuine change, and you're not going to get that from either of the two main parties anymore.
Now, you said that you think this country is in dire straits. You also said yesterday in your speech that Reform were interested in restoration, not revolution. But we're seeing quite an interesting, turbulent time in politics, both here and across the Atlantic. That huge march on Sunday. How do you interpret these times as politics go, and what's Reform's role in that?
Thanks, Miriam. Well, that's a great and rather large question.
In 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think something profound is happening in our country and in our culture, and there are some sort of unattractive expressions of that, but mostly I think you've got decent, ordinary, patriotic people standing up and saying they've had enough, and they don't want to be run by an establishment that despises them. And that is the revolution that is happening. But we want an English revolution, which is fundamentally one of restoration, one of bringing back the systems that used to work, that used to make Parliament sovereign, that used to make the government accountable to the people, that used to make the elite genuinely part of their own country and respecting the values and the aspirations of ordinary people. That's the restoration that we need. I don't want to trash our institutions or create some sort of new Leninist future. I actually want our country back. But I actually also think that is the best recipe for the future. The modern age actually demands the old-fashioned ways of doing things: family, community, country, the things that we have campaigned for and that Reform stand for. The new age of tech can actually, I think, restore an old-fashioned vision of the local community and can bring dignity to work again, support families with wages that pay for a family life. So I'm very future-oriented. I think there's great optimism in our country, but we do need to restore the foundations of our politics and, frankly, dismantle the modern progressive superstructure, the bureaucracy that is stifling enterprise and inhibiting community life.
You talked a lot about, is this the blob you're talking about, the so-called civil service blob that's not working?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I am. Yes, I think there is a establishment. Again, decent people. Let's not personalise this. They're public servants they're following their masters.
Would you make them go to work in the office?
Well, so listen, there's a whole load of work that needs to be done about civil service reform. I personally would have a smaller, more efficient, leaner, more capable civil service that was properly accountable to ministers. I would scrap a whole lot of the quangos, the bureaucratic agencies that have taken power away from Parliament. And so that when you elect a new government, you know that the ministers who are going to be standing in Parliament representing, speaking for the government, are genuinely in charge, genuinely accountable, rather than just simply reading out the lines the civil servants have given them as sort of spokesman for the kind of permanent government, which never changes. That's the problem we've got.
Now, just finally, Danny, GB News went to your constituency of East Wiltshire yesterday, spoke to a whole range of constituents.
Yes,
some agreed with your move, some didn't. What do you say to constituents who voted Conservative and are worried about your move?
I really respect that. I have huge respect for people who honour the Conservative tradition, who stand by the party even in tough times like this. So, I have many friends locally who I know are going to be very worried about what I've done. I hope that over the next year or so I will be able to demonstrate to them that actually it's safe to join Reform, it's safe to vote Reform. I'm still the same Conservative I always was. But if they genuinely want Conservative politics and Conservative change in our country, Reform are now the vehicle for that.
I'm going to ask you one last cheeky question. What does your mother prove?
Listen,
Sorry, got to ask.
I feel Listen, I've had a lot of support from my family. I'm not going to get into individuals and let my mum speak.
You off.
Listen, I'm not even going to go there. Maybe she'll say something publicly. I'm not going to.
Because you are on opposing sides on one or two issues.
That's true, but she's a great. I mean, I'm glad to say she's actually a big fan of me, and she wants the best for me politically. So I'm not going to drag her into politics. She can say what she likes, but so far...
That's your mum ringing.
Maybe
ringing to tell you what she thinks. That's Prue Leith.
I don't know who it is.
Get her on GB News now. Come on, Prue Leith. We'll have you on any time you like.
Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Danny Kruger there, the Reform MP for East Wiltshire.
Now it's time for the British giveaway. Your chance to be our biggest winner to date with a prize with a package worth over £104,000, a new motorhome and
£30,000 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details of how you could be our next big winner.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still ahead, find out about some good news for pensioners this morning.
Up next, though, Sir Keir Starmer says he won't quit. Of course he says that over the Lord Manderson scandal and has blamed everybody else for failing to brief him on the peers' emails with Jeffrey Epstein. We're asking, should the PM's days be numbered?
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welsh women say they were stunned when an Airbnb host rejected their booking with the only explanation given, because you're from Wales. The pair had planned a night out in Manchester to attend a concert, but now accuse the host of outright xenophobia. One of them joins us now live to share exactly what happened and why she believes it's a case of discrimination. Joining me now is Gemma Louise Goff. Gemma, thank you so much for joining me. I can't believe your story. It sounds astonishing. So basically, you and your friend, you're in your 30s, you're not exactly, teenagers, you're not a group of young men, booked an Airbnb to go and see a gig. Tell me what happened then.
Well, we found the Airbnb. It looked really clean. It was in the centre. It was exactly what we wanted, just a bed for the night. And we messaged, we paid up front, and she then messaged within the hour, sorry, we had the email saying that it was declined and refunded. So we'd messaged and said, like the message says, really politely, hi, why has it been declined, with a kiss on the end? Yeah. And she literally only wrote that one word, and Wales was in capital letters, so it was more like against Wales. It was utter shock.
What did you think when you... did you think it was a joke? Maybe she was sort of like, had messaged you when she was drunk and it was just a joke? Or... I can't believe anyone would actually say that.
I've never faced discrimination on any level before, so the experience was quite surprising and unsettling at the same time. But I was in utter shock. It made me feel instantly like an outsider and not welcome for the simple fact I'm from Wales.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Panels here, political commentator Piers Pottinger and GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Piers Pottinger, interesting, Danny Kruger, whatever Tories spin they try and put in it, oh, he should fight a by-election, oh, whatever. That is a major blow for the Tory party to lose somebody of his stature. He's a proper, thoughtful, intellectual figure who's obviously agonised over this for some time.
Yes, he's a real heavyweight.
Yeah.
But more importantly, he's a man with a future. He was one of the coming people in a very poor-looking party at the moment. Other than David Davis's superb performance yesterday, it's a long time since the Conservatives have scored any points. Kruger is, you know, he was the head of research for the Centre for Policy Studies. Yeah. He's a heavyweight intellectual. And I thought in your interview he spoke very well. Yeah. He's exactly the kind of person that Nigel Farage wants to attract. Yeah. And Farage has quite rightly said he doesn't want to attract just anyone for the sake of, so that they might find themselves a job in the future. He's attracted a lot of other former Conservatives, but they don't have a role. They don't have a seat. They don't have a job. They're just members of the party, people like Jake Berry, Nadine Dorris. I mean, but this man, Danny Kruger, is a real, a proper politician, a man with stature. And I think it is the biggest blow to the Conservative Party. And if people do follow him, which I think his move will now encourage more of the right kind of people, I fear that he may well be right when he says this is the end of the Conservative Party.
And what he should do is he should hold a by-election. The people of East Yorkshire.
He won't.
I do know he won't, and I think every MP who chooses to join another party after they've been voted in for a different party should always have a by-election. Douglas Carswell did it in 2014. Nigel Farage actually wanted when Christian Wakeford defected from the Tories to Labour, he said that they ought to have a by-election for that. And if you are honourable about it in the same way that Douglas Carswell was when he went to UKIP, you would hold a by-election. The reason they won't is perfectly simple. Reform came fourth in East Wiltshire at the general election, so...
It's the Lib Dems are the main opponent to...
Well, I mean...
Labour came second.
Labour came second, right. Then the Lib Dems...
You know that the polls have changed phenomenally since...
Yeah, I mean, if he won, that would be sensational. But the whole thing is that I just think it's unreasonable to your constituents not to give them a chance to
I suppose what this highlights is the dilemma, or trilemma, that MPs face, which is that you're serving your constituents, you're serving your party, but you're serving the whips, but you're also serving the country. And I think what came across from Danny's speech yesterday was that not any malice towards the Conservative Party, but that he felt that it's in the national interest now for Labour to be defeated. That's obviously Conservative perspective. And that actually the best vehicle, the only vehicle now for doing that is reform. Is it not at least admirable that MPs are thinking about the national interest above all?
Yeah, but the most admirable thing to do would then then be to put it to the people you represent.
Well, for once, I agree with Nigel here, because actually what would be the most powerful thing of all for reform would be to hold a by-election and win it.
Yeah. Absolutely,
and it would be, I think it would be a really strong message, and would terrify Starmer even more. Not that he'll be around for too much longer. But, I mean, the real point is that I do agree with Nigel. I've always believed any MP who changes party, there should automatically be a by-election, because people voted for the party as much as they voted for the candidate.
A Labour MP said to me yesterday, Nigel, what we really want is the Tories to get stronger, to knock reform back.
Of course they do, yeah.
That's not happening.
No, it's
going
not,
the other way. The Tories are shrinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear by all the Labour rhetoric nowadays, it's aimed against reform.
Yes.
That they don't
they are
see...
now the official enemy.
Yes, they're not the opposition, but they are the enemy. And they're the ones that Labour have to be. I mean, almost the Tory party is completely ignored. So I understand the defection. I don't have a problem with the defection, and I'm sure there will be more. As I say, I think that you ought to care enough about your constituents to actually get it rubber stamped by them that they approve.
Yeah, but none of Corbyn's lot, with their new party that they still can't even find a name for. And these are all serving Labour MPs. They're not holding by-elections.
Independent, so
no.
So
well, exactly. They're joining a different party.
Well, I mean, Corbyn's
they haven't. So I mean,
Corbyn is independent.
Why don't they all hold a by-election?
He was chucked out of the Labour Party. I don't think he should have been, but he was chucked out of the Labour Party. So
he should be chucked out of the country, Jed. I mean, he's a supporter of terrorism.
But he is free to join a new party on the basis he is an independent.
Let's go back to December. You were on this programme, and Peter Manson was widely floated to become the next ambassador of Washington.
Yes.
And you predicted on this programme something like, I don't give that very long.
No, I said, how on earth can they make this man an ambassador? For 3 reasons, and the third one, and I said, and the biggest one, were his connections to Jeffrey Epstein that were much more serious than has been reported. He was there. He was much closer than Prince Andrew was. He saw him regularly.
Best pal.
Best pal. He's done business deals. Most significantly, he sold a taxpayer's asset via Jess Staley, who was a banker at JP Morgan before Barclays and has now been banned for life from working in financial services.
And that was a £1 billion deal.
And it was taxpayers' asset, this was part of the Royal Bank of Scotland that the government took over. I think what is really important is that there's an inquiry into every aspect of that deal to see who made money out of it. And I'm afraid to say that the Epstein connection was obviously so wrong that to make him ambassador, as I said at the time, it would all end in tears, and it has. And Starmer, for all his shilly-shallying around who gave him the right advice and vetting and everything, sorry, he made him ambassador. He knew about Epstein's connections. That alone... Anyone sensible would have said he's not the man.
What was your view at the time? That it was a too big a risk?
No, I thought that Peter Mandelson... I mean, I knew Peter Mandelson well because we worked together. He'd make a good ambassador. I thought he would survive until Wednesday last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have more from you both in an hour.
We certainly
Nigel,
will. And of course, we've got a debate in the Commons today being initiated by David Davis about Manson, and I think that's going to be very problematic for the Prime Minister again.
I think it is, and well done, David Davis.
Yeah, he's done brilliantly.
Well, more from us soon, but first of all, your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. Sir Keir Starmer is facing the prospect of further questions about his leadership after sacking Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump will touch down in the UK today for his second state visit. He'll stay in Windsor Castle, where he'll be hosted by the King and be treated to a state banquet. Google is set to invest £5 billion in the UK in the next 2 years to support growing demands for AI services. The announcement is expected to contribute to the creation of thousands of jobs, according to the tech giant. Chancellor Rachel Reeves described it as a vote of confidence in the economy. That says wage growth has fallen back to its lowest level for more than 3 years as firms continue to clamp down on hiring, according to official figures. The ONS said regular wage growth, excluding bonuses, dropped to 4.8% in the 3 months to July. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, the US President will land in Britain for his second state visit. Are you happy to roll out the red carpet for him?
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly compared with how we've started the week, it's a drier day for most of us today. Still a lot of cloud and still some showers, especially towards western coasts and more especially parts of northern and northwest England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland. That's where we'll see some very frequent and occasionally persistent showers moving through. Areas of cloud for many, but the brightest weather will be towards the southeast, mostly dry here, as well as parts of central Scotland. Again, avoiding a lot of the showers here. It's going to feel a little warmer because of the lighter winds compared with Monday, and also because of fewer showers and a bit more sunshine. But it turns increasingly cloudy, increasingly breezy as well from the southwest as the afternoon comes to an end. Meanwhile, for much of Scotland, we keep the showers going into Tuesday evening. The most frequent of these will be across the north of Scotland, and the showers further south through the central belt and southern Scotland tending to ease. Northern Ireland showers also easing for a time. Northwest England seeing 1 or 2, but across parts of Wales and the southwest, the showers merging to give longer spells of rain as the evening sets in because of the next frontal system that's approaching. It also turns breezier overnight. We do keep some clear spells and some dry weather into the east and especially the northeast of Scotland, but really for much of the UK, by dawn on Wednesday, it's a very wet and very breezy picture. That means, of course, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night away from the far northeast where we keep the clear skies, but it is going to be a soggy start to Wednesday. Some heavy rain through parts of Wales, the Midlands, northern England as well. That will come and go through the day. The bands of rain push their way northeastwards. It does turn drier and brighter in places, particularly Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England by the afternoon, but areas of rain will persist elsewhere, particularly across parts of Wales. It's going to feel a bit more humid, highs of 20 Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. There are incidents on UK roads today. On the M6 northbound near junction 38 in Cumbria, a collision has closed all lanes. In Oxfordshire, on the A34 southbound near Kennington, congestion is causing 15-minute delays. On the M32 southbound in Bristol, 10-minute delays occur due to congestion between junction 2 and 3. On the M23 southbound in Surrey, a broken-down vehicle between junction 8 and 9 has closed one lane. And on the trains, Northern buses replace services between Corkickle and Whitehaven. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom.
So the President of the United States will be touching down in the UK later today. Unprecedented second state visit hosted by the King at Windsor Castle.
Well, thousands of people are expected to protest against the president during the two-day visit, with only 1 in 3 Brits believing that the UK still has a special relationship with the US.
So will you be one of those welcoming Trump to the UK and rolling out the red carpet? Let's talk to a spokesperson for Republicans overseas, Jennifer Ewing, who is a friend of this programme, and the UK and the political advisor, Pablo Ohana. Let's talk to you first of all, Pablo, because I think we know what you're going to say.
Well, listen, I think, we do have to kind of keep our relationship with the United States, but I think it's less about sort of, rolling out this red carpet, which our country does very well. No one does it like us. But it's really about rolling up our sleeve to defend British interests. So, yes, we should meet him, but I don't think we should be fawning over him. We need to lock in, real deliverables, real outcomes for our country. And, not take so many cues from America, really set our own pace on this. For me, that means, cast iron guarantees to secure Ukraine's victory. It means a commitment to NATO and investing, reducing tariffs, protecting British industries like our steel. So I think, people are going to protest. That is absolutely their right. On the whole, Donald Trump is not overly liked in this country. We know that. But, this should be less about just a ceremony and the kind of the pomp of it all, as I say, which we do so well, and more about really locking in some sort of outcomes for our country.
Ever look in an outcome of victory for Ukraine?
Well,
I can't see how Ukraine can ever win that war.
I guess if we're talking about an outcome for Great Britain, which is the country that we should all care about with the special relationship of the United States, is look at what Google just did. Google has invested $5 billion into the United Kingdom. That's ahead of the president's visit. You're going to hear a lot more over the next couple of days about a tech agreement between the US and the UK. And for me, that's one of the greatest things that could happen to this country, more investment, especially in one of the top growing industries, tech. I think you saw Prime Minister Keir Starmer, make some movements with regards to the net zero situation, because we know in the United Kingdom you're going to need more energy in order to build out this AI industry. And as President Trump has shown, once you unleash energy, whether that's Jill Baby Jill or just make it easier for energy companies to invest, that's how you really grow your economy. There is no such thing as an economy or a middle class without a healthy energy sector. And it would be great if the UK could become energy independent again, like the US is. So great first move by Google.
Now, Pablo, I think what you said about Britain needing to act in our own interests is very important. But do you agree that Trump should have been offered a state visit? He could have just been offered an ordinary political visit, like many other leaders are.
Yeah, I think that is sort of the slight difference between where I would be on this, is that I don't have a problem at all with the UK engaging with its allies, and America is sort of just about still an ally. We should be securing that relationship. I do think a second state visit makes it tricky, and it slightly blurs that line between, why are we hosting him? And I know that Donald Trump loves the pomp, and I know that's part of the strategy, is to try and try and win him over through those kind of paths, and making sure that we would put on the whole display and that kind of thing. As I say, that whether it's just a visit or whether it's a state visit, whether it's a bit more politics, whether it's a bit more pomp, we have to make sure that we get something out of that. And, it is true, Google has announced this big investment, and any investment in the UK is incredibly welcome. But I think that there are, as I say, those kind of three things that we really should be getting as an outcome to make sure that, our continent, our borders are secure, our country's security is increased, and part of that is things like Ukraine, things like NATO, to make sure that we're working with America on that. Donald Trump has been not always the most helpful on Ukraine, let's be honest. And I think one of the things that we could do is really to move that forward. I know Starmer, to his credit, has actually done a good job on that. But, I think, to use their words, they should be going further, faster.
Jennifer, we've been convulsed here over the machinations to do with Lord Mandelson, our ambassador, who was fired on Thursday, just days before the state visit. Extraordinary. It's never happened in British history. How has it made any waves at all on Capitol Hill?
No, not at all. I think if you are
Gosh, that will infuriate Peter Mandelson. He'd want it to be terrible news in America.
Actually, I think some people who are, definitely on the inside baseball of UK British relationships inside DC, of course they will have known him. Yeah. But if you go out to the wider country, nobody knew who he was. So this is way more of a UK domestic issue than a US issue. I thought, along with a lot of people, that why didn't they just keep Dame blame Karen Pierce.
Yes.
You know, she did such a good job. Obviously, she could get along with the Biden administration. My understanding is as early as 3 weeks ago, President Trump had her on the list for the state banquet. So there's obviously some good relationships there. So let's see what happens. But no, this is not hurting President Trump in the U.S. at all.
And Pablo, just finally from you. Of course, there's a lot of dismay about Trump on the left in Britain. Lots of Labour politicians have made very rude remarks about him in the past. Of course, they've rightly backtracked on those for reasons of national interest. But are you concerned about the rise of the MAGA movement and potentially an equivalent movement here in the UK? We've seen the rise of Nigel Farage, a lot more patriotism on the streets of London. Does that concern you as someone on the left?
I am increasingly concerned about the rise of sort of a MAGA-like movement over here. I'm not concerned at all about a rise of patriotism. I'm incredibly proud of my country. I hesitate to say this, but I do think we're the greatest country in the world. That's my opinion. But anyway, you know, I don't have a problem at all with that. I do have a problem with patriotism being hijacked to make other people feel uncomfortable. You know, we have seen that the recent protests, the recent kind of various marches and things across the country have been designed to make people uncomfortable. That's very different to a kind of movement to feel proud in our country. And there are lots of things that are incredible about our country, lots of things that need to be improved, of course. But yeah, I am very concerned about a sort of MAGA-style movement over here. I don't think it suits our country. I think, you know, in our core, our country is diverse, it's tolerant, it's open. That is why we see such huge support for things like Ukraine. When that happened, we didn't turn our back, you know, and full credit, you won't often hear me say this, but full credit to Boris Johnson, who did not blink before we took a side in that war. And that's who we are. That is the core of our country. And it worries me that we might be sort of stepping away from that if we import this sort of MAGA culture. It's not who our country is. We are, you know, much more sensible and a lot more kind of reserved, actually very British about things like that.
And Jennifer, just finally, they may not know who the ambassador is, but they know all about our king, they know about Prince William, they know about Princess Catherine, the pomp and the pageantry. Will this be wall-to-wall coverage for Donald Trump in the United States?
I think so. You know, until actually recently with the free speech troubles that the United Kingdom has had, and indeed the grooming gangs, you didn't really hear a lot about the United Kingdom in the United States press, with the exception of any time it was something royal, right? I mean, a lot of people my age and older will remember being awoken as a little kid to watch Princess Diana wedding, obviously Kate and William. So no, the Americans love the pomp and circumstance, and President Trump just certainly does as well.
Well, Jennifer Ewing and Pablo Ohana, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And of course, we'll be covering the state visit from beginning to end.
We'll be live there in Windsor.
You're going to be there in Windsor.
I know, looking forward to it.
Up next, we're going to find out why one leading lawyer thinks the definition of Islamophobia that's being drawn up by Labour ministers will make the life of police officers even more flipping difficult.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you're wondering where you can go to avoid the UK's wind and rain, well, just about anywhere further south will do it, with a large area of high pressure bringing widespread dry and sunny weather, and in fact very warm weather to the Canaries, into Spain as well as Portugal. Central Spain at the moment seeing temperatures up to 37, 38 Celsius, much higher than average for the time of year. Not quite as hot across Central Europe, but mostly dry with plenty of sunshine. And that theme continues through the rest of the week and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air
gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A lawyer has claimed that a new definition of Islamophobia being drawn up by Labour ministers could actually hinder the police in their work.
Well, Tom Cross KC has warned that it could be used to object to the police arresting Muslims for serious crimes and interpreted as influencing decisions on sentencing. Well, we're now joined by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, there's been so much controversy about this proposed definition of Islamophobia. Angela Rayner famously championed it, but now this lawyer is saying that it could have quite far-reaching consequences.
Yes, and I think the campaigners who are organising to go against this definition, which includes a lot of influential Conservatives in the background, they are seeing a moment, an opportunity now to really force this issue back into the limelight and hopefully, on their perspective, for it to be defeated. Because, of course, Angela Rayner, the minister who was championing it, has resigned. She's lost those leadership and management roles and has been replaced by Steve Reid, who is understood to still be pushing ahead with the definition. But this lawyer's advice, Tom Cross KC, coming in to say that even though this guidance is said to be non-statutory, it could still have an impact on bodies such as the Sentencing Council and also the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. And because it's non-statutory, a lot of people in the government are saying that actually these concerns being raised by Mr Cross are nonsense. They're the worries of an activist lawyer. But when you speak to people inside the system, as it were, who have shared these concerns privately, they do express worry that legitimate concerns that they've been looking into in the past could be blocked by these concerns.
How will it stop the police doing their job effectively, Charlie, in layman's terms? What will it do?
Well, when you look at the first time the Islamophobia definition was drawn up by an APPG on British Muslims in 2018, it referred to criticisms of Islam and wider links between British Muslims and terrorism and criminality, in particular the grooming gang scandal. They would say that drawing a link there between perceived Muslimness and those offences would be an example of hatred. And so, imagine, Andrew, you are a police officer or a council worker who has noticed a pattern of offending which links British Muslims and an overrepresentation of them in a certain area of offending, such as group-based child abuse. Now, that could spark a lot of fear inside a police officer or a council worker if they think that they're going to be dragged over a disciplinary hearing for promoting Islamophobia or hatred. And while that advice is non-statutory, in Tom Cross's legal opinion, he said it could be infringing on the powers of bodies that would interact with those works.
Now, campaign groups have said that they will fight this all the way. Do you think very quickly there is a chance of stopping this definition ever becoming law?
I think if the Labour government continue to be on the back foot, this is a fight they really don't want to have.
Fascinating.
Well, Charlie Peters, thank you very much for that report. Well, do stick with us, because coming up, some very welcome financial news for pensioners this morning. We'll be giving you all the details.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly compared with how we've started the week, it's a drier day for most of us today. Still a lot of cloud and still some showers, especially towards western coasts and more especially parts of northern and northwest England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland. That's where we'll see some very frequent and occasionally persistent showers moving through. Areas of cloud for many, but the brightest weather will be towards the southeast, mostly dry here, as well as parts of central Scotland. Again, avoiding a lot of the showers here. It's going to feel a little warmer because of the lighter winds compared with Monday, and also because of fewer showers and a bit more sunshine. But it turns increasingly cloudy, increasingly breezy as well from the southwest as the afternoon comes to an end. Meanwhile, for much of Scotland, we keep the showers going into Tuesday evening. The most frequent of these will be across the north of Scotland, and the showers further south through the central belt and southern Scotland tending to ease. Northern Ireland showers also easing for a time. Northwest England seeing one or two, but across parts of Wales and the southwest, the showers merging to give longer spells of rain as the evening sets in because of the next frontal system that's approaching. It also turns breezier overnight. We do keep some clear spells and some dry weather into the east and especially the northeast of Scotland, but really for much of the UK, by dawn on Wednesday, it's a very wet and very breezy picture. That means, of course, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night away from the far northeast where we keep the clear skies, but it is going to be a soggy start to Wednesday. Some heavy rain through parts of Wales, the Midlands, northern England as well. That will come and go through the day. The bands of rain push their way northeastwards. It does turn drier and brighter in places, particularly Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England by the afternoon, but areas of rain will persist elsewhere, particularly across parts of Wales. It's going to feel a bit more humid, highs of 20 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 16th of September, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, some breaking news for you this morning. There's joy for millions of pensioners as the state pension is poised to jump by £560.
That's right, it goes up by £561 next April and it'll be up by £1,900 before the end of this Parliament. Labour says it's committed to the triple lock. Will the Tories say the same?
And surprise, surprise, that first flight for sending illegal migrants back to France, 1 in, 1 out, they told us, took off last night. How many migrants on board? Not one.
Well, this legal challenge was inevitable. Today, we're back to trying again. Cue more legal challenges.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
And there'll be an emergency debate in Parliament later as the Prime Minister's judgment comes into question about Lord Peter Mandelson and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
And the fallout continues. Number 10's Director of Strategy, Paul Overton, he's resigned over leaked X-rated messages, offensive ones about Diane Abbott back in 2017, following on from the resignation of the Deputy Prime Minister and Lord Mandelson, of course.
And Trump incoming. We're rolling out the red carpet for the US President's second state visit today, and he's expected to go easy on the under-pressure Sir Keir Starmer. It's not a great week to be in number 10, Andrew. In fact, a few weeks. And the latest news that this Paul Overton, a speechwriter, has resigned over some pretty horrendous WhatsApp messages. But they were from a long time ago, and we're in a private group.
And he was a press officer then. He wasn't working for Starmer. He was working for Jeremy Corbyn. But this week, if they'd come to like perhaps a month ago, he might have got away with it. But in this febrile atmosphere, also lay off Diane Abbott. I don't agree with her politics at all, but she's a decent woman, and she's an historic figure as the first ever black woman MP in this country. And the amount of racist, sexist abuse she gets is horrendous from her own side.
Yeah, absolutely. But it does worry me that private chat, which in the past might have happened down the pub and would never have been repeated and there would have been no evidence that existed, is now being used to bring people down in their jobs. And of course what he said was horrendous, but we all say horrendous things in private, let's be honest. It's worrying for privacy.
You should do what I say about you when you're not around.
You say it to my face, Andrew. Well, we'd love to know what you think. Keep it nice though. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
But first, here's your second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you. The top stories. People on the new full state pension are set for a rise of over £500 a year from next April, following the latest official earnings data. Under the triple lock policy, the state pension goes up each year, either by 2.5%. Inflation or average earnings growth, whichever is the highest figure. The ONS revealed total pay, including bonuses, for the 3 months to July was 4.7%, which is likely to be the figure used for the annual increase. Almost 13 million people currently receive the state pension. Work and Pension Secretary Pat McFadden spoke this morning.
The figures today are the earnings figures that feed into the triple lock calculation. This government is committed to maintaining the triple lock for the course of this Parliament. The OBR estimates that will mean a rise in the state pension of around £1,900 a year over the course of the Parliament. That's a commitment from the government to the United Kingdom's pensioners to maintain the value of the state pension, and that's something that we said we'd do at the election and something that we will keep to.
Sir Keir Starmer's facing the prospect of further questions about his leadership after sacking Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. The Prime Minister is under pressure after admitting he was aware of emails between Lord Mandelson and Epstein. He's blamed his team for not properly briefing him on the contents of the emails and insists he will not quit over the scandal.
I knew of his association with Epstein. But had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him.
Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News Breakfast.
He will have been close enough and understanding enough of the sensitivities here. He would have known that he was going into a Prime Minister's questions where he was going to get asked all about this. Prime Ministers prep very thoroughly for PMQs. It's one of the big things they do during their week. And the idea that he would not have been asking questions about what was in those emails, what do I need to be worried about, I think beggars credulity. And so that's why we're having this debate. We want this information out there so it can be properly examined and we can get the answers.
US President Donald Trump will touch down in the UK today for his second state visit. He'll stay in Windsor Castle, where he'll be hosted by the King and be treated to a state banquet. There'll be no public-facing engagements during the visit, with thousands expected to protest against the president during his two-day visit. Security will be operating at a very high threat level. Thames Valley Police says it's content with its operation, but that arrangements were reviewed daily in light of planned protests and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was killed in Utah last week. Well, breaking news this hour, GB News exclusively revealed that a former Conservative health minister has defected to Reform UK. Maria Caulfield, who now works full-time in the NHS, is the 13th of former Tory to defect and join Nigel Farage's party. It comes less than 24 hours after the defection of Danny Kruger, who declared that Reform bears the new torch of Conservatism. Ms Caulfield, who was the MP for Lewis until 2024, told GB News, if you are Conservative right-minded, then the future is Reform. The country is going to change a lot, she says. Sir Keir Starmer said the courage shown by the Hillsborough campaigners had been humbling as he welcomed some of them to Downing Street this morning. Campaigners have hailed a momentous day as a bill to force public officials to tell the truth is finally introduced into Parliament. The Public Office Bill, known more commonly as the Hillsborough Law, will be tabled today after a nearly decade-long fight to get it onto the statute book. Crucially, the legislation contains a new professional and legal duty of candour, meaning public officials must act with honesty and integrity at all times or face criminal sanctions. Concerns this element would be watered down delayed the bill being introduced by the 36th anniversary of the tragedy in April, a deadline the Prime Minister set at the Labour conference in Liverpool last year. Elsewhere, Google is set to invest £5 billion in the UK in the next 2 years to support growing demands for AI services. The announcement is expected to contribute to the creation of thousands of jobs, the US tech giant said. Chancellor Rachel Reeves described it as a vote of confidence in the economy. The news comes hours before Donald Trump lands in the UK for his state visit, at which he and Sir Keir Starmer are widely expected to sign a new UK-US tech deal. And a commission established by the United Nations says Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The report claims it is clear that there is an intent to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza and says Israel's actions meet the criteria set down for defining a genocide. It's the first time that such an explosive allegation has been made publicly by a UN body. Israel has dismissed the report, denouncing it as distorted and false. It comes amid reports that Israel's launched a ground offensive to seize Gaza City. The commission, which has been studying the conduct of Israel since the Hamas attacks on the 7th of October 2023, has concluded Israel has committed 4 of the 5 acts laid out in the Genocide Convention. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Hello, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. And lots of people getting in touch on your side. I just want to read a particular one out, because we were talking about the rise in the state pension with Chris Hope earlier. And I said that the problem is that the rise in the state pension is going to be paid for by people currently paying tax, who are working, who are already being squeezed. And Kenneth says, Miriam is talking rubbish on pensions again. National insurance was known by all to pay for your health service and pension, which many of us paid all our working lives. Miriam wants to move the goalposts. Unfortunately, you're wrong, Kenneth, because national insurance, although successive governments have said this is to pay for your pension, it isn't. It isn't. It is spent immediately by the government on the day on whatever, roads, health, and it isn't tied to you. Unfortunately, people, I'm afraid, have been lied to for a long time.
Right.
In other countries...
A lot of people say that it should be abolished because it's such a
Yeah, it's just income tax.
And it's expensive to
That's
administer
right.
it.
Exactly, and it's not like a private pension or a work pension where how much you pay in determines how you get out. If you've paid the minimum of national insurance your whole working life, you will get the same pension as someone who's paid in hundreds of thousands or even millions of pounds. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, and that's why we're in such big trouble.
But you're no fan of the triple lock, Miriam.
I'm not a fan of the triple lock because working people's wages have now risen far less quickly than pensioners over the last 20, 30 years. And of course, there are lots of pensioners on very low wages, but there are also lots of pensioners who don't need the state pension.
Danny Kruger, does he support, who we spoke to earlier, who's defected to reform, does he want to keep this triple lock?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to ask him.
Interesting, because it's one area where the Tories are strong with voters, and they support the triple lock. And we've just heard Pat McFadden, the welfare minister, saying that Labour will stick to the triple lock.
But unfortunately, it's just going to push us more and more into debt. Other countries, like Switzerland, for example, have actually invested people's personal contributions. So there is actually a pot with people's name on that they're drawing from. But that's just not the case in this country. It's a massive mistake.
Well, let's go to Downing Street to talk to Chris Hope, our political editor. Chris, this is a big moment. Can you explain why we know these figures now about the pension?
Yes, Andrew, Miriam, it goes back to this commitment from the Labour government to the triple lock. And that means that every year the state pension for millions of pensioners will go up by one of 3 calculations: by inflation, average earnings, or by 2.5%. Now, they strike that figure in September so that the government is ready to pay out the money to all the pensioners in April. Now, of those 3 measures, pay went up the most. Between May and July, the total pay, including bonuses, on average went up by 4.7%. That outstrips 2.5% and also inflation, of course. And that means that this new pension from next May will be up to £241 a week, up from £230 a week. In total, for the year, for the next financial year, up by £561. Up by £1,900 by the scheduled date for the next election in 2029. Pat McFadden, he's a new welfare secretary. He says this government is committed to maintaining the triple lock for the course of this parliament. It's something that we said we'd do at the election and something we'd keep to. Now, that puts more pressure, I think, on Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader. This idea of a triple lock was invented really by David Cameron when he was Prime Minister. The Tories have always fought their elections since then on committing to it. We haven't heard yet that same commitment will be made by the Tory party. I should say, of course, Labour also haven't committed to keeping it after 2029. So this increasingly, as we go towards the election date, will become a hot political issue.
Rate's 3.8%, Chris, but mainly predictions it's going to go to at least 4%. So by the time we get to April, it may not appear as generous, perhaps, as it does now.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, this is a backwards-looking figure. They have to strike it in September because they're not sure where the economy will be in April next year. They've got to get the whole thing organised. Many people receive their pension in cash in post offices. They have to ensure that the right money is sent out to those 12,000 or so post offices around the country, so people can queue for their pension. Not everyone gets it paid directly into their bank account. So yeah, question marks for Kevin Badenoch, and more question marks today as we revealed the defection of a 13th former Conservative MP, Maria Caulfield. She, of course, was the MP for Lewis in Sussex until last year when she lost her seat in that general election. So big concerns there. She tells GB News today that she has gone to Reform UK within the past month. I spoke to her late last night because she's now a nurse in the NHS, back doing what she did in part-time when she was an MP too, so giving back public service in a different way. What I find striking about this is the fact that former Tories, senior Tories, are just leaving the party without really talking to Nigel Farage. Apparently she spoke to Lee Anderson, of course, who is Reform's chief whip. There are now 13 former Conservative MPs who have jumped ship to Reform UK. It's happening almost organically without any real attempt by Nigel Farage to encourage them. The big name who went yesterday was Danny Kruger, of course. He's a sitting MP, the first sitting Tory MP to jump ship. And just finally on Maria Caulfield, she said this: the same people who thought that Brexit wouldn't happen think that reform won't happen. They're in for a shock, she told GB News last night.
Well, Chris, just quickly, Labour may welcome the defection of Danny Kruger yesterday. It takes the pressure off them in the headlines for some time. But actually, from a long-term point of view, this is just a strengthening opportunity for Reform, who Labour already see as their main opposition for the next election.
That's right. I mean, if you look at the language used last Monday night to the Parliamentary Labour Party last week by Keir Starmer, he said he's worried about the Greens and the Reform UK. He called Reform UK plastic patriots. He called the Greens plastic progressives. Those are who he's worrying about, not the 120 or so Tory MPs in Parliament, but the it's 5 Reform UK MPs sitting there up to the right in Parliament. There's now a break. Today's the last day of Parliament sitting until after the conference break, so back on that week of October 13th. There's a pause now. We'll see how these parties can regroup under that pressure of Reform UK. But a poll out today putting Reform up 2 points on 29 points. Labour just 20 points. Reform UK are miles ahead in the polls. That is the party which is obsessing the people behind me in number 10 Downing Street and shortly away from here in Conservative Party HQ.
Well, Chris Hope, outside number 10 Downing Street, thank you very much.
Amazing. So the first flight from Britain to France for illegal migrants took off last night, but something was missing. GB News Home Security Editor Mark White can tell us more. Why are you smiling?
Only because you're very mischievous, that's why. Yes, there was supposed to be one migrant who was going to be returned to France.
That's why the ministers wouldn't tell us on the media round how many were going to be on board. One.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've been pretty coy about predicting when flights will get off because they know, as we know, that the second they try to get a flight off, there are last-minute legal challenges. And that's exactly what happened here. A last-minute legal challenge meant that they couldn't put that migrant on board that flight. He was taken off the flight and it departed, a scheduled flight to Paris as normal. They'll try again today, but you know, there will be more challenges for those migrants they're planning to send today. And regardless of the merits of the individual appeals before the courts, they still have to be heard. And it's not necessarily always the quickest of processes. It might be fairly straightforward in terms of the fact that these people are being returned to a safe third country, and it was, of course, the last country they left when they came across the Channel illegally. So it might seem fairly straightforward, but actually there's some fairly substantive points that the lawyers acting on behalf of these migrants might be able to argue. For instance, is France putting in the same kind of processes that will allow these people, if they're sent back across the Channel, to go through that asylum process properly? Or, as is being suggested, are some of them destined to be returned back to their own countries? Now, if that is the case, if that's what's planned by France, then there may be actually arguable points to put before an appeal judge.
So how many are going to come into Britain from France at the weekend?
Well, it's scheduled for Saturday that we will receive some migrants.
Do we know how many?
No, we don't know how many, and they're deliberately keeping that...
Have they got human rights lawyers crawling all over the flights to stop it happening?
No, funnily enough, no human rights lawyers will step in the way of anybody coming here to the UK if that we can guarantee.
The land of milk and honey.
Well, indeed, you could certainly argue that point. I think, as far as Saturday is concerned, maybe if we don't get many off this week, that might be curtailed a bit. I don't know, because actually, as long as the government doesn't tell us, we don't know anyway just how many people are coming. And they've said, as far as those going out to France is concerned, we will give you updates, semi-regular updates. So when's that? What, a month's time? 2 months' time? I think they'll certainly tell us if they manage to get some flights off today with migrants on board. But it was only ever expected to be less than 50 this week anyway. I think they might be lucky to get a dozen off at this rate.
Not good, is it?
Well, Mark White, thank you for that. I do wonder, Andrew, what the government will do if this fails, because they have really hung their hats on this as a deterrent for small boats, and, well, it hasn't deterred the 5,500 people who've come over since the announcement.
Rwanda.
Time for revival, we'll see.
They couldn't, because they didn't want it to succeed, because it would have, which is why they killed it stone dead.
Indeed.
Now, time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to be our biggest winner to date with a prize worth over £104,000.
That's a brand new motorhome and £30,000 in tax-free cash as well. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details you need.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16, PO Box 8690, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, we're going to be joined by the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. We'll get her thoughts on the state pension rise and how will she stop any more Tories defecting.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News, and we say favourite show because yesterday again we had amazing figures. So thank you for listening in such ever larger numbers. We do appreciate you. Thank you.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom and, oh gosh, there's so much going on at the moment, isn't there, Andrew?
Yes.
Trump visit, Starmer under pressure.
Huge pressure. Fighting for his political life.
And one of the questions that Labour backbenchers are asking is, can he be deposed? Who can he be replaced by? But I don't really see how they can do that. It's quite difficult in the Labour Party.
Well, because if they want Andy Burnham, tricky. The Greater Manchester Mayor, he hasn't got a seat in the Commons.
That's right. Well, some potential good news for the government this morning. They've recommitted to the triple lock, meaning that the state pension will rise by over £560 next year.
So we're now joined, we're delighted to say, for the second day running by the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi, 2 days in a row, what is our good fortune, as it is for our viewers and listeners. This is good news for pensioners because of the rise in average earnings. Labour say they are committing to the triple lock for the lifetime of this Parliament. You haven't gone there yet.
Yes, I have. I've already said that the triple lock is Conservative policy. We're the ones who invented the triple lock. But what is really of concern to me is that the people who are making the money to pay for the state pension and to grow our economy are all saying that they're struggling. I'm standing here in a restaurant. Hospitality in the UK is not doing well. The unemployment figures that came out today show that we have many more problems coming out on the horizon. Labour is increasing unemployment, and that's going to cause a serious economic crisis unless they get a grip.
I mean, lots of economists have said that the triple lock, and indeed the state pension, is ultimately unsustainable. It's going to bring enormous increases to national debt, and probably people in their 40s now or under probably won't get a state pension. Lots of people think it's driving generational inequality. Are you sure that the Conservatives are not going to look again at this policy?
The first thing that we need to deal with is the number of people out of work. One of the reasons why people are talking about the state pension being expensive is because we are not growing the way we used to. If we had 2-3% growth, we wouldn't even be worried about the triple lock. And the first way to deal with the growth issue is to get people off welfare and back into work. That's why I have been telling Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, we will work with them, we will help them to cut welfare spending. It is not fair to go after people's pensions, people who've paid in all their lives, while there are a lot of people who are sitting at home, who should be working, who are not working.
Let's take you to the House of Commons today, Kemi, because the Conservative Party have successfully secured a 3-hour debate about Lord Mandelson. What is your principal concern about what the Prime Minister is or isn't telling us?
This is about the Prime Minister's judgment, about his transparency and, quite frankly, his honesty. Last week, when I asked him at Prime Minister's questions what he knew, he said that they did not, he said that he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson. sacked him the next day and said he didn't know all of the stuff that came out. It now turns out that he did know. He had all of these emails and all these details on the Tuesday, and yet on Wednesday he was saying that he had full confidence in the ambassador. But what is worse than that is that it sounds like he overruled security concerns about Peter Mandelson due to his previous reputation, links with China. There were security concerns, as reported in the papers. He needs to come clean on that. We cannot have a Prime Minister who is telling us stuff in Parliament that turns out not to be true. We should not be having appointments overruled, security concerns overruled because people just want to get a former Labour MP into a nice cushy job. And that's what they need to answer today. There are very serious questions to answer about UK national security, about how this decision was made, what Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, knew, and how he's running this country. He is now distracted with his political crisis, got a deputy leadership contest after his deputy prime minister had to resign because she wasn't paying the very taxes that we think they're going to increase on everybody else. They are in a complete mess.
If he's found to have misled Parliament in the sense he maintains he wasn't shown the final cache of emails, they were in Downing Street, but for some reason nobody showed them to him and he wasn't curious enough to ask. But if it transpires he in fact did see them and misled Parliament when he said he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, does he have to resign?
I think that there should be serious consequences. If you have lied to Parliament on his own benchmark, I remember Keir Starmer going after Boris Johnson and setting a standard. All I'm asking is that he meet the very same standard which he was setting for other people. Has he been honest with the public? And what the public actually think is that this is a man who tells lies. He told lies to get elected. They said they weren't going to increase taxes. They increased those taxes. They went after the winter fuel payment when they had been telling people for years and years that the winter fuel payment was safe, didn't warn anyone about that. This is a party that thought they could say whatever they wanted to get into government, and now they're in government, they can't run the country. And that is what worries me now, that with politics we need honesty, we need reliability, consistency and responsibility. That's one of the things that I'm pushing. I'm showing Conservative parties changed under my leadership. It'll take time for us to win back the public trust, but I'm out working hard every day, talking to business people, workers like I'm doing this morning, and trying to rebuild that trust that Labour has lost already.
And just finally, very quickly, Kemi, big news yesterday about the defection of Danny Kruger, a front bencher in the Conservative Party. Are you worried about more defections of sitting MPs? Because
we've just heard today that Maria Caulfield has defected.
This is one of the things that I said when I was on your show yesterday. Every leader regrets losing people to another party. I remember when Labour were doing very well in the polls last year, we lost 2 or 3 MPs defecting to them. There will be some people who will go to another party because of poll ratings. I have to make sure that I'm very focused on the strategy. There will be people who will leave because they don't like the new policies, like me saying that we need to live within our means, no more lavish spending, it's time to cut welfare, time to get people out of work. We're going to see that. When a party has just had a historic defeat, we will have a very tough and bumpy time before we come back up again. There is no reason why the public is going to rush back to us. I have to prove that the party has changed. There may be some people who are impatient. I am sorry if they're not willing to wait and they just want to rush to whatever is looking good right now. But what I'm doing is going to work in the long term. I am not going to be blown around or blown off course by these events. I am focused on the strategy that will win public trust.
Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, thank you so much for your time this morning.
And we've got time now to go to our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The headlines at 11:30. Sir Keir Starmer is facing the prospect of further questions about his leadership after sacking Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump will touch down in the UK today for his second state visit. He'll stay in Windsor Castle, where he'll be hosted by the King and be treated to a state banquet. People on the new full state pension are set for a rise of over £500 a year from next April, following the latest official earnings data. Under the triple lock policy, the state pension goes up each year by either 2.5%, inflation or average earnings growth, whichever is the highest figure. And Google is set to invest £5 billion in the UK in the next 2 years to support growing demands for AI services. The announcement is expected to contribute to the creation of thousands of jobs, according to the tech giant. Chancellor Rachel Reeves described it as a vote of confidence in the UK economy. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news from me at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain. It says there with Tom and Emily. Your name's not Emily.
I've changed colour and hair.
This also needs to be updated. But nothing gets past you, Andrew, please. I know Nana and Emily do look alike.
Tom and not Emily. What's on your programme?
Well, of course, we'll be talking about Peter Mandelson because there's so many...
Big debate today.
Exactly.
The government is crumbling. I mean, first of all, Keir Starmer knew about his friendship with Epstein before he gave him the position.
Yeah.
Then he knew that he'd stayed at Epstein's house whilst Epstein was in prison after he'd been convicted of sexual offences, and he also knew that the Foreign Office were investigating Epstein and all the emails. So I have no idea why Keir Starmer, A, didn't... First of all, gave him the job, and B, didn't just get away from him and disassociate himself.
But this is extraordinary, isn't it? This is, to get technical for a second, it's a Standing Order 24 debate. The last time that Parliament heard one of these was about Partygate under Boris Johnson. We had a few of them during Brexit. These are rare things. It's a serious emergency
I think it was
debate.
on the Scottish Parliament's Gender Recognition Act. That was the most recent.
Right.
Sorry
That was. No, 2 years ago. So that was
very
the most
significant.
That was the most recent one. There was there are a couple over Partygate and a few over Brexit. But I mean, that's the scale, the weight of what is going on in Parliament.
This is because the Speaker has agreed it's such a big, significant event that Parliament is entitled and has a right to debate it. Well, very good, very fair play to him, because that will not endear him to his Labour colleagues.
Well, I think it shows how weak the Prime Minister is, quite frankly. There have been times where the Prime Minister has strong-armed the Speaker to do what he wants to do. It looks like the Prime Minister's not in a position to strong-arm anyone. In fact, quite the opposite. He is being buffeted around all over the place like a sort of unhinged shopping trolley. He can't even... I mean, one of the strange things that we've seen today is that another migrant flight has attempted to fly off.
Of course.
And how many migrants are on board?
Zero.
Nearly.
Hilarious.
A second flight.
Hilarious.
Oh, well.
We could have told them that.
Should have kept Rwanda.
That. All of that and more at midday. Up next, US President Donald Trump will be landing in Britain in just a matter of hours. We'll be rolling out the red carpet for him, should we?
You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day for most today, lighter the winds compared to yesterday. It's not completely dry. There are a few showers, especially over northern England and northern Scotland. We're between two weather systems. This one is moving in. That's going to bring some more wet and windy weather tonight and for many of us tomorrow as well. So make the most of today if you can. As I say, it's not completely fine. There are some showers drifting in over northern England. Some of those popping up to the east of the Pennines this afternoon, and a scattering of showers over southwest Scotland and northern Scotland. Much of the east coast of Scotland dry and fine. Same goes for Northern Ireland, most of England and Wales. Clouding over a bit towards the southwest. In the east with some sunshine, temperatures squeaking up to 20 Celsius. Now the cloud increasing in the west from that weather system we saw earlier, and it will eventually bring some rain in from the Atlantic. But ahead of it, still many of us having a fine evening. There will be showers across northern Scotland, keeping going through the evening rush hour, but as I said, much of the east coast dry and bright. Small chance of a shower moving through the Glasgow area, scattering of showers over northern England, and by this stage, 6 o'clock tonight, the cloud thick enough for some outbreaks of rain to be trickling onto the south coast of Wales. That is the first sign of that weather system moving in, and then it kind of just swamps its way in across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England before midnight, and continues to spread into parts of Scotland and central and then eastern parts of England as we head through the early hours. It will be a very mild night as the wet weather moves in. Temperatures in the southwest may well stay in the teens, a little cooler where it stays driest across the north of Scotland. But the rain will continue to track in, and then it kind of lingers through the day over parts of Wales, the Midlands and northern England, and that's going to make for quite a bit of rain falling when it all tots up. It could cause some issues, particularly over Wales, where the heavy bursts of rain continue throughout Wednesday. Elsewhere it should turn a little drier and also a little warmer, but it will again be windy.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Piers Pottinger and Nigel Nelson are back. And gentlemen, at mid-30, 12:30, 3-hour debate on the floor of the House, Mandelson. Piers, what would be fascinating, the Tories are leading with David Davis, who's a veteran bruiser.
Yes.
He's pretty good at this sort of stuff.
Terrific.
It will be how many Labour MPs are whipped into getting up and saying very pro-Peter Mandelson things, very pro-Keir Starmer things, when they will, frankly, play very badly in their constituencies if they do.
Well, I mean, the Labour have got a real problem now. And, I mean, Nigel and I have debated in the past and agreed in the past that when you have a fractured party that's not united, the electorate don't like it. And we saw that with the Tories, when we had the rebel Tory MPs. Every day it was the rebel Tories doing something. So that was a major factor in people not voting for them. You've now got a very serious fracture in the Labour Party, with Andy Burnham making it quite clear he wants to be leader. He's a very ambitious guy. You've got, at the moment, it would appear Lucy Powell ahead, and she's very much a supporter of Burnham in the deputy leader of the party. You've got a conference coming up where it's going to be all about who's going to be the leader, the deputy leader. So everything is distracting from Starmer's terrible attempt to reset, as he's always resetting. And this was meant to be phase 2 of this shambolic government. But today, the debate will be very interesting to see what they focus on, because one of the things I really want them to focus on is I hope they focus on, is what Mandelson did as business secretary. And somewhere along the line, there should be an investigation into that particular transaction.
In relation to the business deal he did over the sale of a bank?
It was a part of the Royal Bank of Scotland assets, which were owned by the taxpayer as the government took it over. It was then sold by Mandelson.
Bits of it were sold off. Basically, they were selling off some of their assets.
A bit of it was being sold off, and it was for billions of dollars, via Jeffrey Epstein and Jess Staley, who was then the head of JP Morgan and has now been banned for life for working in financial services. Something there...
And Staley was deeply implicated with Epstein.
He was banned for life because of his connection with Epstein.
Epstein was advising on the deal. That was the point.
And the question here is the legitimacy of that sale and who benefited from it. And Mandelson may not have benefited personally, financially. I'm sure he didn't. Well, I certainly hope he didn't, because if he did, he's finished forever in every aspect of his life, which he probably is now anyway. I think it's over. Personally, I would like to see him resign from the Lords,
Won't do that.
as I think he's bringing the House of Lords into disrepute by remaining there. If you remember, Harold Wilson ennobled the famous Joe Kagan, his raincoat manufacturer, Lord Gannex, he was called. And he had to resign after him being brought in. And Mandelson is a busted flush, and
the whole affair has been totally mishandled yet again by Starmer. Starmer is
it does
a
depend
catastrophe.
it does depend what Peter Mandelson actually said. I mean, there are things we don't know about this. One would hope you get the answers.
He doesn't want us to know about them.
Well, one would hope you get the answers through the 3-hour debate, but. If Peter Mandelson came absolutely clean about everything, including the fact that he championed Jeffrey Epstein after conviction, if that was actually given to Number 10, then the mere fact it was made public later should not deprive him of his job. Yeah. He could be rightly angry about that. If he didn't, if he misled people, then I think Piers is absolutely
right. Is Trump going to be a welcome distraction for an embattled Prime Minister, or is it just going to be more difficulties, particularly for people on the left who think, what the hell did you give this bloke a second state visit for anyway?
It depends what Trump says, and Trump, as we all know,
what he's asked,
is
not what he's
unpredictable. He could. They're all saying he's going to be nice about Trump because he's very sensitive to domestic political stuff. Trump? Yes, exactly.
Word, yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a throwaway line or two at the very least that will give Starmer some shivers.
Where it goes wrong, though, is that because of the Peter Mandelson episode, an awful lot of questions at the press conferences are going to be about
Although we
Epstein.
had Jennifer Ewing on earlier, an American Republican commentator. She was saying that the Mandelson story has not cut through at all in the US. Outside of Washington, nobody knows who he is. It's not seen as a particular embarrassment.
But the embarrassing bit is if you start asking questions about Epstein, it's the ones that Donald Trump doesn't want to answer.
Indeed.
Yeah, because in the famous book, a lot of the comments, Mandelson, we're talking about his best pal and how we love you and all this stuff. And Trump is now suing the New York Times
most extraordinary
over this for billions because he wants to bust them. He doesn't just want to win a libel case; he wants to finish them for good. I mean, he's doing the same, of course, with the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
I mean, you're suing the two of the most important newspapers in the United States, if not the free Western world, and you're suing them to finish them.
It could work the other way around, of course, if they win.
On this issue, Trump and Epstein, Trump is sensitive.
Yes,
he's personally very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
And therefore, when he's sensitive, like any kind of wounded bully, he's unpredictable. And he could say some very unpleasant things about the state of our democracy, if not Starmer himself.
20 seconds, Nigel. Somebody who is vengeful is Peter Mandelson. Vengeful is an understatement.
Yes, so
and he is not going to go quietly. He's going to try and take somebody down with him.
Well, it'll be Keir Starmer.
And it'll be Starmer who'll be in his sights, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to if Peter Mandelson thinks he came clean at the time, then he's right to be aggrieved. If he thinks he became
and he won't go quietly, will he?
Then he won't go quietly. I mean, obviously, it depends on. Bear in mind, if you look at his previous resignations, there was nothing much he could say about the Jeffrey Robinson scandal.
Fascinating.
Well, Piers, Nigel, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. Coming up next, we'll be telling you about the X-rated and offensive comments that Starmer's top aide made about Diane Abbott 10 years ago that forced him to resign. But the comments were made in private messages, so should he be forced to resign?
Here's some holiday sun, if that's what you're looking for.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're wondering where you can go to avoid the UK's wind and rain, well, just about anywhere further south will do it, with a large area of high pressure bringing widespread dry and sunny weather, and in fact very warm weather to the Canaries, into Spain as well as Portugal. Central Spain at the moment seeing temperatures up to 37, 38 Celsius, much higher than average for the time of year. Not quite as hot across Central Europe, but mostly dry with plenty of sunshine, and that theme continues through the rest of the week and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Drew, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
And we've just been doing it could get any worse. The Prime Minister, Paul Overton, has resigned as Director of Strategy at Downing Street over the release of sexually explicit messages about the Labour MP Diane Abbott, which he made in 2017.
Now, a spokesman for the government has said that these kind of comments have no place in our politics and attributed to his resignation to avoid distracting the public from the vital work that the government is doing. Well, joining us now is the editor-at-large at the Tribune magazine, Carl Hansen. Carl, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Is it inevitable when WhatsApp messages of this nature are revealed that someone will have to resign?
I think in any line of work, if somebody makes those type of vile sexual comments about a woman that they have to work with, it would be a sackable offence, and I don't think that politics should be any different. So, yeah, of course, Paul Overton had to go over those comments.
Are you worried, though, about this trend of private messages that perhaps in the past would have been spoken down the pub and never seen the light of day again, can be used potentially years later to bring somebody down?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it appears that these messages were made on work servers. So I think if you're stupid enough to do that, then you really do only have yourself to blame. And those type of comments aren't appropriate anywhere. And if you are the type of person that wants to make those type of disgusting remarks, then do them at the pub with your friends, not over emails where there's going to be a traceable record. I have no sympathy for somebody who gets caught out by their own sordid remarks being brought up in public like this.
Well, I think that's a very fair point, Carl. And, well, we'll see how this develops. But obviously, there could be more and more scandals going along for the Starmer government. Carl Henson there, thank you very much for joining us.
It's just, I mean, I thought the big story yesterday was going to be the defection of Danny Kruger, the Tory MP. But number 10 step in. It feels like the end of days of a government that's been in power for 10 years, 12 years, not a government that's been in power for 14 months.
Well,
feels longer, doesn't it, than 14 months? Oh, my God, it does.
Well, that's it from us at Britain's Newsroom, but we will be back live tomorrow from Windsor for the state visit, so do join us. I believe, hopefully, we'll be under a tent and not rained on.
We'll have to play the Stars and Stripes.
Absolutely, I might wear red, white and blue. Well, anyway, coming up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Nana.
It's going to be a blockbuster.
Yes, well, listen, coming up in the programme, we'll, of course, be talking about Peter Mandelson, because that is the big topic of conversation at the moment. What did Keir Starmer know, and when did he know it? Plus, another thing that is probably quite close to home, and a lot of us experience, is the NHS. Currently, over £242 million is spent on health tourism. My goodness, that could pay for about 3,200 extra staff. So should people from abroad have to get medical insurance? That's coming up.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly compared with how we've started the week, it's a drier day for most of us today. Still a lot of cloud and still some showers, especially towards western coasts and more especially parts of northern and northwest England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland. That's where we'll see some very frequent and occasionally persistent showers moving through. Areas of cloud for many, but the brightest weather will be towards the southeast, mostly dry here, as well as parts of central Scotland. Again, avoiding a lot of the showers here. It's going to feel a little warmer because of the lighter winds compared with Monday, and also because of fewer showers and a bit more sunshine. But it turns increasingly cloudy, increasingly breezy as well from the southwest as the afternoon comes to an end. Meanwhile, for much of Scotland, we keep the showers going into Tuesday evening. The most frequent of these will be across the north of Scotland, and the showers further south through the central belt and southern Scotland tending to ease. Northern Ireland showers also easing for a time. Northwest England seeing one or two, but across parts of Wales and the southwest, the showers merging to give longer spells of rain as the evening sets in because of the next frontal system that's approaching. It also turns breezier overnight. We do keep some clear spells and some dry weather into the east and especially the northeast of Scotland, but really for much of the UK, by dawn on Wednesday, it's a very wet and very breezy picture. That means, of course, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night away from the far northeast where we keep the clear skies, but it is going to be a soggy start to Wednesday. Some heavy rain through parts of Wales, the Midlands, northern England as well. That will come and go through the day. The bands of rain push their way northeastwards. It does turn drier and brighter in places, particularly Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England by the afternoon, but areas of rain will persist elsewhere, particularly across parts of Wales. It's going to feel a bit more humid, highs of 20 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 16th of September. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akweer.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then